What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports. If you're watching our college football channel, we continue with our 2023 predictions. The Baylor Bears are up next. Let's take a look at some of the other predictions for this team. Coming off of, a bit of a disappointing season last year at 6-7, but the FBI has them this year at 7.4 and 4.7. Athlon has them at 7-5. The over/under, I've seen it at 6.5. I've seen it at 7, and I've seen it at 7.5. I would definitely not. If you're gonna go over, the 6.5, pretty good shot at that. If it was 7.5, I would stay under probably, or probably stay away from it. Honestly, if you're gonna find it at 6.5, yeah, that could possibly be a pretty good bet there, going with the over, because I think this team's gonna be pretty good. It's not a sure thing. You look at the offense; they've got Blake Shapen coming back at quarterback, proven veteran guy who has played really well for them in the past. They've got some weapons around him, good running back group, wide receivers pretty solid. Offensive line, a little bit of inexperience there, so we'll see. That's been a kind of a strength for Baylor the last couple of years under Dave Aranda. And defensively, there are some question marks in terms of experience, in terms of total talent on defense. But again, Dave Aranda has proven he's a really good defensive coach, and so you expect that defense to be pretty solid. Again, going to have to develop players. We'll see how that plays out. There's potential for Baylor to not be that great on defense, again, when you just look at their roster on paper. Let's look at the schedule here. They're going to play Texas State, Utah, and LIU. Those are the three non-conference games. We can go ahead and count Texas State as a win. And then Utah, big game on September the 9th. Similar teams, similar styles. Home field advantage does go in the favor of Baylor. But I just think this Utah team overall is a better team, a more talented team. I think they're going to be better on defense than Baylor. I think they're going to be better at the line of scrimmage. So really no reason for me to pick Baylor in this game. I'm going to go with Utah to beat Baylor. So we give them the win over Texas State. Then they lose to Utah and obviously beat LIU. So I've got them starting 2-1. Then they'll play Texas on September 23rd. You wonder about the secondary for Baylor. I think that's going to be a big concern here going up against that Texas passing attack. That's a big-time matchup there that I think does favor Texas. But I just feel like Baylor playing at home, they're going to probably slow this game down. They're going to be a tough physical team, as Texas is going to be ready for that. And mentally for Texas, they have not been mentally tough. They've lost a lot of games that they should have won the last couple of years. And they're going to be coming off of, again, I picked them to beat Alabama, coming off of a big win against Alabama. Can they stay focused? Can they get up for this game? I just see this as a potential upset game for Texas, and I think Baylor does pull off the upset at home. I've got them beating Texas and getting to 3-1. Then you go to UCF on September the 30th. Another tough offense to stop. This is a veteran UCF group, a pretty tough place to play. Defensively, UCF has some playmakers as well, so I just think UCF is probably the better team. I know they're the more experienced team. They have a ton of returning production. So UCF, I do believe, will be better, plus playing at home. Yes, I think they pull off a big one over Texas, but then have a little bit of a letdown the next week against UCF. So I think they probably split those two games. Maybe they can go into UCF and pull off a big upset, and then maybe they don't beat Texas, but either way, that's the way I've got it going there. And then Texas Tech on October the 7th at home. This is a tough one to pick. I think Texas Tech's probably the better team, but home field advantage does go to Baylor here. Again, it's a tough one to pick. I really had a hard time with this one because, again, I think Texas Tech is the better team. But you guys know, I look at these schedules, I come up with my predictions for every team, and then I kind of fill in the games from there. And this is just one I think Baylor can get. So I'm going to say Baylor gets the win at home against Texas Tech. And then they get a bye week right there in the middle of the season before playing Cincinnati, who might be the worst team in the Big 12 this year. It is on the road, so that does make you a little bit concerned if you're Baylor, but I just think they're a better team here, and I think they're able to go in there and get that done. I think the offense for Baylor, like I said, is going to surprise some people this year. I think they're going to be pretty explosive, and I think they do get that win on the road. Next up, they'll play Iowa State at home, and so this is going to be another team that wants to kind of slow the game down a little bit, run the football. Baylor probably going to have a better offense than Iowa State. Iowa State might have a better defense. It's just a really interesting matchup here. And I just, if they're going to beat Texas and Texas Tech, if they win both of those games and then beat Iowa State, I think that's too many wins for them. So I'm going to give them a loss here to Iowa State. could very easily flip that around and say they beat Iowa State, lose to Texas Tech, or lose to Texas. But it's just one of those games where maybe Baylor doesn't show up. They're expecting a pretty easy win. They've won a couple of games in a row, and maybe Iowa State's able to go in there and pull off a big upset. Iowa State's done it in the past. They've gone on the road and pulled off upsets in the past, and this might be one that they can get this year. Next game is against Houston on November the 4th. Should be a good game here. I think Houston's being a little bit underrated. I think because they're coming out of the American, a lot of people think they're not going to be able to compete in the Big 12. I disagree with that. I look at this roster, and I think they're going to be pretty solid. But I do think Baylor's still the better team, plus they're playing at home. I don't see them losing back-to-back home games here with Iowa State and Houston. And so I think they win that game. Again, maybe you flip those games. Maybe they beat Iowa State, lose to Houston. But yeah, I think at this point they're 6-3, but then they have a pretty tough stretch here to close things out. You get Kansas State on the road. Kansas State's just going to be a really good team once again. I think they're the better team, plus they'll have home field advantage in this game. So I got to go with the Wildcats. Kansas State gets this one. And then TCU on the 18th. Again, back-to-back road games against the two teams that were in the Big 12 championship last year. That's pretty tough. You get Kansas State, TCU back-to-back. TCU also, I think, is going to be a good team this year. I don't think they're going to drop off that much. Some people think they will. I don't think they'll be as good as last year, but I do think they'll still be a really good team. And so I think they win that game. I think they're the better team, plus they're playing at home. And then Baylor finishes things up with West Virginia. Two good run teams going at it here. Probably a lower scoring game. West Virginia going to have a pretty solid defense and have a really good offensive line. So you should see a lot of running of the football, I think, for both teams here in this one. But playing at home, I got to go with Baylor. I think Baylor does get this win, and they finish 7-5. I think they could go 6-6 with this schedule. I'm giving them wins over Texas, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Houston. Those are all games that they could potentially lose. So I actually think they're. I said earlier I would go with the over on the 6.5, but now that I look at it again here, maybe they're more likely to go 6-6 than 8-4. 8-4 is going to be really tough with this schedule. So I've got them at 7-5. I would love to know your thoughts. Give me your predictions on Baylor down in the comments below.